Waiting for my cue. Good afternoon. I'm Christine Taylor Lewis, and on behalf of the Afro-American Historical Association of Fauquier County, I thank you for your support. I welcome you here and I greet you. In this, our 8th in a series of conversations with family historians and others who will share their genealogy and history about African Americans in Fauquier County. Now, in keeping with the AAHA mission, we endeavor to collect, to document, preserve, and share US history with a focus on the African Americans here in Fauquier County. Our hope is that this series of virtual events will somehow encourage you to seek out our webpage, where you'll find an extensive collection of information, photographs, our story map, our interactive story map about the history and of the Fauquier County communities and their churches and various organizations. And we hope that this series will also give you an opportunity through Facebook, YouTube, Zoom, and of course our website to see all of this information that we have available to you about the African Americans here in Fauquier. So try to log in or reach out to us at aahafauquier.org. That's aahafauquier.org. Now, during the month of April, the focus of our conversation has been migration. History reveals that roughly between the 1910s until the 1970s, approximately 6 million African Americans moved from the American South to northern, Midwestern, and Western states in a mass movement known as the Great Migration. The driving force behind this movement was to escape racial violence, to pursue economic and educational opportunities, and to gain freedom from the oppression of Jim Crow. Many Fauquier natives, including myself, left Southern soil in order to cultivate futures in more fertile ground in other states. Now, 2 weeks ago, we highlighted a family with members who migrated from Fauquier County to Washington, D.C., New York City, and to Rhode Island. Today's guest has a somewhat unique migration story. She comes from a set of ancestors who migrated to Washington, D.C. from a rural county south of Fauquier. And out of this family came a son who left the city to settle in Warrenton when it was mostly rural. So our guest, Brenda Pitts Fuller, grew up in Warrenton and graduated from W.C. Taylor High School in 1966. After graduation, she moved to Washington, D.C., attended business college, and began working for the federal and D.C. governments. In 2011, she retired from the Securities and Exchange Commission as a senior manager in the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act office after 42 years of service in government. Brenda and William married in 1968. They have 3 sons, 10 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. She recently moved to Gainesville, Virginia, to be near her family. Brenda enjoys spending time with her family, hand dancing, golfing, traveling, crocheting, and of course, researching genealogy. She's published 3 books on their families, the first in 1996, and she's currently working on an update. Please help me to welcome my dear friend since first grade, Brenda Pitts Fuller. Hello, Brenda.
Hello, Christine. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's such a joy to see you. You look well, and it's truly an honor to have you join us here at the AAHA series of genealogy events. And we're excited about what you have to share with us today.
Well, thank you. And that was a great introduction. The one thing about information, when you put it all together,
Yes.
It always seems to be so much better than what it is. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share my story and the work that has gone into accumulating the history of my parents and
Yes.
myself as we move forward in life. And I
Great.
also want to give a special shout out to Stephanie Addison Mudd, who
Yes.
helps me fill in all the gaps of the history and keep me on point. She's a wonderful person to do the work, and we appreciate her so much.
Yes.
And yes, you and I have been friends since elementary school at Rosenwald.
That's right.
And I love the class of 66 because to me, we've always had a bond to stay together. So that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Very true.
So let me get started with my goals today and let
Okay.
you know that I want to encourage everyone that genealogy is nothing you should be afraid of, but it's something you should embrace with pencil and paper.
Yes.
Anybody can do the research on their family just by doing pencil and paper. So my goal today is to share some of the ups and downs that I've gone through to get to this point, and to share about the migration and the records that we've been able to obtain over the years from this family.
Great.
Let me say this to begin with. My research was captured with good intention to establish a guideline for our families. Documenting history takes a lifetime.
Yes.
It's time consuming and it's very expensive. So in each document and presentation that I do, I put a disclaimer that it may not be 100% accurate and it may contain inaccuracies, missing data, misspelling, and omissions. But I choose to disseminate the information rather than hold on to it and not leave it for our children behind us. First, I want to share that my family migrated from Caroline County to Fauquier County and then on to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
My parents returned to Fauquier County after the death of my mother's father, Calvin. In my presentation today, I will be sharing pictures and documents to help my research become a visual for you. Hopefully, I can bring it alive for you. As a young girl, I was always interested in family history and taking pictures. And Christine, you may remember in high school, I was on the yearbook staff. So I helped document the history of the class of 66 so that we could leave a legacy for those behind us. And I put together a brief history of the family in 1991 as I prepared for a family reunion. And in this presentation, it was just a plain cover.
Nice.
With
It's family
information
reunion.
in it. And in this document, I captured my father's family, starting with his mother's parents and moving on. And as you can see, I drew lines, underlining in Word Perfect program. In those days, we didn't have computers or research, or nor did we have the internet. So this was my first project that I did in 1991. And at that time, my grandparents had 23 grandchildren, 36 great-grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. That number has since doubled. So from 1991 to 1999, we were able to produce a book publication containing over, I'd say, 60 pages of family history. And the outline that I used, I'll share with you early for anyone that may want to do their own presentation. So this was my first start. I had a cousin named LaVon Pitts, and we got together and we got busy and we started doing the research. And in 1999, we were able to present this booklet to our family at a reunion. The way we did our research was we called Caroline County, Virginia, and they provided us with the census from 1800 on microfiche. We used to take the microfiche to the library and scroll through it in order to find the data, and then we had to pay money to print the sheets out. We were able to obtain vital records and obtain marriage license and death certificates. And on most marriage license, they always tell you the race of the individuals, the age of the individuals, the parents of the individuals, and they always give dates. So with those records, we were able to go back and start our research. We were able to go back to 1852. A lot of the earlier research, we still could do some more data on it, but we were working on it. And for your information, birth records are public in Virginia, 100 years after the event. Marriage, death certificates, and divorce records are public after 25 years after the event. And then we went to the National Archives. At the National Archives, we were looking for data from the 1700s. We found some records, but that archives is so massive. If you don't have a good lineage, it's very difficult for them to help you connect dots for your research. So we left them alone. And we also talked to our fathers, our aunts, our uncles. We obtained a lot of verbal stories. And my cousin and I, we continued this research until she died in 2010. I miss her all the time. So the first generation that we found was James and Mary Farmer. Born in Caroline County. And Mary was born in 1822. They got married in 1847. And they had 5 children, and Mary was a seamstress. The next generation of those 4 children, she had Mortimer Pitts, who was born in 1854 in Caroline County, and he died in 1937. Mortimer was buried in the family cemetery. Some of this information is incomplete, but this is a picture of Mortimer. I don't know how.
Oh my, yes.
Picture of Mortimer, who was born in 1854. This is Mortimer's marriage certificate, obtained from vital records in Virginia. So when he got married, he was 21 years old and he was white. And the name of his wife and her parents are on the certificate. So that's another side that we could research. Mortimer died in 1937. Died at the age of 82. But when he died, he was colored. So one of the things that we learned about the state of Virginia is that because they were so racial, anytime a white had a relationship with a Black, that family would be excommunicated from that race. It's hard to determine what happened with Mortimer to change his race after 60 years. But we'll go on to that research later. But while Mortimer was buried in the family cemetery. So while we're talking about cemeteries, let me give you this bit of information. In 1941, the government bought 80,000 acres in Caroline County to build a military installation called AP Hill. It was named after a lieutenant general in the Army. Many families, farms, schools, churches, and cemeteries were destroyed to wait for this military base. According to my research, Mortimer and Ann Pitts were buried on land. They had a family cemetery. This is hard information, guys. The government contracted with the Davis Funeral Home to remove the graves for those people who wanted to stay in Caroline County, for whose families they wanted to stay in Caroline County. The cemeteries were moved to Mount Lawn Cemetery for the whites. And they moved the blacks. I'm sorry, for cemeteries were moved. For those who wanted the remains moved from the black church, they were moved to Mount Lawn Cemetery. And for the whites, they were moved to Woodford Cemetery in Bowling Green, Virginia. Some graves were moved to other sites, and unfortunately, some graves weren't moved at all because they were not marked or the families just didn't care. And this is the start of the migration in Caroline County for families because the military bought their property, but they didn't give them good value for it. So those families begin to migrate to Washington, metropolitan area, and New Jersey. And so our family, understanding this history, we took it upon ourselves to make sure that our ancestors in Fauquier County had grave markers.
Yes.
So several years ago, we had a yard sale, we raised money, we bought the grave markers. My brother, who's an excavator, replaced those markers for our family. So a part of the lineage is making sure that the graves of our ancestors are documented. So that was that little piece of history.
Yes. Amazing. Not surprising.
Not surprising.
But it is amazing.
Yeah. So Mortimer and his family were listed in the 1800s as whites, as mulattoes. In the 1900s, they were black. So in a matter of 20 years, his race changed. But in the 1880 census, his mother, Mary Farmer, was listed in the census with 4 children. Mary and her family were listed as white. According to our research, Mortimer was listed on the colored table tracts of land for $18.99, obtained from the clerk of Caroline County. And it shows that Mortimer owned 60 acres of land that he bought for $1.
60 acres.
He owned it free and clear. And the land was called Shady Grove, and it was valued at $165. Mortimer and Ann went on and they had 10 children. Sally, Lucy, Cornelius, Nelson, Neve, Mary, Ann, Mortimer, Tommy, and my grandfather, Arthur. It appears that one of the children died, and we believe that that was Helen as we looked through the census records. On March the 12th, Mortimer and Ann sold 18 acres of land to Mortimer Jr. for the sum of $5. And that was Arthur's brother. Wouldn't it be nice for our parents to let us buy land today at $5?
Hello.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about my grandfather.
Okay.
This is a picture of my grandfather, Arthur, his wife,
Oh,
Kate.
look at him.
And, we debate on who the baby is, but today I'm going to say it's my father.
Okay.
Could be another child, but that's what we're going to say today. Arthur was born October the 10th of 1890 and died June of 61 in Washington, D.C. He married Carrie Myrtle Gaines in 1892, and she died March 6th of 1978 after a long illness. Arthur and Carrie married July the 6th, 1921. Carrie was 27 and Arthur was 28. So in those days, that was kind of late getting married. Arthur and Carrie had 6 children. So this is a picture of my father and all of his siblings.
Okay. Wow.
Did this for the cover of the
That's
book, for the
beautiful.
family tree. So they were Roger, born June of 92, and he died in December of 96. Harry was born in 24, and he died in 1993. Lloyd was born in 1927 in Trenton, New Jersey, and died in 1974 in Washington.
Okay.
Dan was born in 27 and died in December of 98 in Prince George's County. Franklin was born 1929 and died March of 1985 in California. Mabel Pitts Gaines Cornegay was born February the 13th, 1933. She lives in Clinton, Maryland. She is 89 years old. She's the matriarch of the family, and she is very much alive and well.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful.
A picture of the home that Carrie and Arthur lived in.
Wow.
And this is their marriage license. I obtained their marriage license.
That's nice.
And like I said, she was 27 and he was 28. And this is a picture of my Aunt Mabel, who's still living, with a picture of 3 of her brothers, one being my father. And so this is the legacy that we've been left to work with.
So Brenda, is that your father sitting?
Yes,
Mr. Marvin. Yeah.
Because my mother died very early on.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
that's a good picture of him.
Yes, very much. I wish they were clear.
So good. I could tell that was him.
Yes. And while we're talking about my father and his siblings, Arthur and his siblings, this is a picture of Arthur's siblings.
Okay.
That's 2 sisters, a brother, and 2 sisters and 3 brothers. So this is where the story begins to unfold. Arthur purchased land from his sister-in-law and husband, William and Sally Parker.
Okay.
Arthur built a home in Caroline County and became a farmer. They grew tobacco, corn, chickens, fruits, and a few pigs and a milking cow. Harry was a homemaker. When farming was not producing enough income, Arthur moved to New Jersey and started working as a bricklayer. Sometime after 1924, Carrie moved to New Jersey with Arthur. While there, she gave birth to Lloyd, their 3rd son, and Frank, their 5th son. Carrie missed Virginia and returned to Caroline County. Arthur stayed in New Jersey for over 12 years and only came home 3 times a year. Carrie's sister, Sally Minnie, helped her with the children. The sister Minnie took the son Lloyd and moved him to Washington with them. Minnie and her husband, they owned a sanitation and a moving company, and Lloyd worked for them. Arthur, who was very light-skinned with blue eyes, was passing for white. He was able to stay in New Jersey and make a living. According to verbal information, Arthur took a maid with him. What you think of that?
He needed a maid.
He
needed somebody to help him out, keep his little stuff clean.
I can only imagine what it must have been like for my grandmother Carrie to raise 6 children without a husband. She had the responsibility of kids, a farm, and caring for everyone. As a strong woman, she endured the raising of her family no matter what. She sent them to school and was a member of St. Stephen's Baptist Church. That's what we call holding on to your family.
Yes, indeed.
Because Arthur was passing as white, he earned enough money to send home, and Carrie was able to hire a housekeeper named Hattie Coleman. Arthur started sending money home less and less. He returned after 1933 and started working at Dahlgren's testing guns for World War II. One day he broke his leg and Carrie had to go to the job to get him. When his colored wife showed up, he was released from the job.
Man.
Arthur spent a lot of time in New Jersey where his brothers Cornelius lived, and he too was passing for white. According to my records, most of Arthur's siblings married into white families. And that was one of the reasons that they stayed away, because they didn't want people to know that. As her sons began to grow into young men, one by one, they started migrating to Washington. And soon they were either drafted or joined various branches of the military after serving their country. And when they left the military, they stayed in Washington, D.C., and they worked as cab drivers, mechanics, or with the U.S. Postal Service. The sons returned to Caroline County frequently to see their parents, where the family would gather for Sunday dinners. Arthur became ill and was taken to Washington for care. While at Freeman's Hospital, he passed. Carrie moved with her daughter Mabel, first to various locations in the Washington area and settling in Maryland. Carrie had a stroke and was hospitalized for 3 years until her death from pneumonia in March of 1978. Carrie lived 18 years past her husband. Call that a strong woman, and she was.
Yes.
She couldn't cook, but she was strong.
Hey.
Mabel, the matriarch of the family, took a role as leader of the family. She cared for her mother for over 18 years, helped her brothers and their families, and as a single mother raised 4 children. Mabel worked full-time, part-time, and lots of overtime to ensure her family was well cared for. By migrating from Caroline County to Washington, she was able to provide for her family and help them become productive citizens, earn their education, and endure entrepreneurship. Mabel also earned her undergraduate degree at age 38, first in the family. And I know for me as a young married woman, when my husband was in the military and I wanted an apartment, H.R. Crawford had a high rise in Washington, D.C. She took me by the hand, went in there and said, my niece needs an apartment. And she saw to it that I got to live in a high rise apartment.
That's beautiful.
Huge.
That is wonderful.
That was
That's
huge in
wonderful.
1969. The men of the Pitts family began to grow their families and were able to get good jobs and marry beautiful women who worked and helped their income. My father, Roger, returned from World War II in 1946 and married my mother. And this is a picture of my mother.
Oh, so beautiful. What a handsome couple.
Thank you. And they got an apartment in Washington, D.C. is a complex called the Mayfair, which was very nice for the Black people.
Yes.
My father started working as a cab driver with Skyview Cab. The job did not bring in very much income, so they decided to move to my grandfather's home, Calvin's, in Warrenton, Virginia.
Yeah.
That's how he got back to.
That's how he came back to the country.
Yes. He later became a mechanic at Diesel Auto Equipment Company, building generators for cars. And my father, who was in the military, I found a letter dated 1945 from my father to my mother, and it's a true love letter. And it is so valuable to have this and to know that they shared a great love. So that was a
Brenda, that's so beautiful.
Hold on to. So when they moved to the Washington area, people were able to live better, eat better, and have better things. So then my parents had my brother Marvin. Marvin is the oldest of our family, and Marvin went to the military right out of high school. And so this is a picture of my siblings and I, and different collections of a family photo that we took. And as Christine told you, I went on to Cortez Peters Business College, worked 42 years, and established myself in the Washington area. Okay, so we've kind of told about the Pitt side of the family and how they migrated and they all worked. So let's talk about my mother's side of the family. On my mother's side of the family, they had a consistent history of being landowners in Virginia. My mother inherited approximately 80 acres of land from her father. My mother died at the age of 46 in 1970. We were devastated. At that time, my siblings and I inherited the land, and our goal was to maintain and pass the land on to our children and our grandchildren. To date, we have 5 families that built land that my mother inherited from her father. Marv, Sonia, and I each have children who have built a home on the property, in addition to Marvin and Sonia. We are building generational wealth.
That's
We
wonderful.
encourage our children to hold on to the land and to pass it on to their children. As I stated, my mother was an only child, and her mother died at childbirth. Stephanie Addison did extensive research when conducted into the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and located the following information on the Eustis family. Stephanie was able to go back 7 generations. So the first was William Eustis. He was born in 1729. He was white. He was born in Europe, and he migrated to Virginia, and the records say he lived in Lancaster County, Virginia. He was married to Ann Gaskins, and she was born in the 1730s and died 1801. Then his son was Isaac. He was born in 1751. He married Susan James, and he died in 1838. And they lived and died in Fauquier County. The next son was John. He was born in 1790. He died in 1847. He married Louisa Butler. She died in March of 1848. They married December of 1820. Louisa was once enslaved African-American woman. They both lived and died in Fauquier County. The son of that was James. He was born in 1827. He died in 1880. He married Louise Johnson, and there's no date of marriage for them. He died in 1835, and she died in 1880. The next generation is my great-grandfather, which brings me a little closer to understanding the history. Edwin D Eustis was born October the 12th of 1856. He died July 29th, 1934. He married Annie D. Washington. She was born in 1861 and died in 1892. They lived and died in Fauquier County. Edwin was born biracial. Research by Stephanie Addison revealed that Edwin served in the 2nd Virginia Regiment or provided supplies to the regiment during the war. These show that Edwin started buying land in Fauquier County on December the 7th, 1892 for $275. He purchased 12 acres, 1 rod, and 1 pole. Now, I have that document here with me today. My family has the original, and this is a copy. This document is 130 years old.
Marvelous.
Amazing.
Just amazing. Yes, it is.
And the penmanships are great. Can you see the penmanship?
Yeah, look at that.
So that was amazing to find that my brother had that document. Then Calvin is my grandfather. He was born in January 31 of 1887 and died June 21 of 1952. He married Manissa Red. She was born August 8, 1902 and died July 10th, 1924. They married November 15th of 1922. Manissa died giving birth to my mother, Beatrice. They died in Fauquier County. She only lived about 3 days after she was born. My mother was born July the 8th, and she died July the 15th of 1970. She married my father, Roger Pitts, who was born June of 1922, and he died December of 1996. They married in October of 1943. Roger died in DC, but Beatrice died and lived in Fauquier County. Roger, after my mother's death, he migrated back to DC to be closer to his family and so he could get better medical care.
Mm.
The next generation is me. But I gotta give my brother due. My brother Marvin is the patriarch of the family. And Marvin has been a lifetime resident of Fauquier County, and so has some of his children and grandchildren. Marvin has a passion for the love of the homeland, and he works hard to maintain the property. Sonia as well was born and reared in Fauquier County, along with most of her family. As for me, I was out of there. I migrated to Washington, D.C., married and raised 3 children. My middle son, Wendell, was given a piece of land from the property, and he married and he built a home on the property. As part of my research, we found the deed dated 1899 between E. D. Eustis and C. M. White. This is amazing. For the sum of $5, they conveyed 1 cow that was red.
1 cow.
1 cow that was red. It was 7 years old, named Missy. 1 gray mare was 12 years old, named Mandy. 1 black mare, 7 years old, named Belle. And 1 3-year-old colt named Mary. And I also have that document.
This is absolutely fabulous and amazing.
It's unbelievable.
I know.
When I had this
is too much.
Copied yesterday, the lady, I went to a private company to have my documents copied.
Yes.
And I told the lady, I said, these documents are very valuable. Please, make sure you copy them well. She said, you got records 130 years old? I said, yeah.
Oh, that's so fabulous.
Amazing.
Brenda.
That was amazing.
Yes, that is.
So when I saw that, I was just overwhelmed the fact that they were deeding this. And my great-grandfather put some of the land on layaway. I have the records. He paid $12 every year for several years in order to convey and obtain all of the land that he wanted.
Now, which grandfather was this? Eustis?
This was E. D. Eustis. He was the
Eustis.
one that started buying land in 1892, and he brought up Friedtown to 1970.
Wow.
So
and put land on the layaway.
And some of it he paid cash for. And I thought that was amazing.
Yes, it is.
I don't have a picture of him. I want to believe that he was probably very fair in the earlier years, and that people trusted him and that they could buy land from him.
Yeah.
But this particular property was in 1917. He paid $650 for it in cash. And it was, I believe, 12 acres of land.
Oh, 12 acres.
I collected 7 deeds in the land through his family. So in closing, the migration of the family from Caroline County to Washington, D.C. area gives me a sense of security that they were able to provide for their families. They were able to be economically suitable, and that they were able to have better schools, better homes, better medical facilities.
Yes.
With better economics, they could purchase home, cars, and vacations. And I know when my mother had her stroke, Fauquier County was not equipped to care for my mother. We had to transfer her to Fairfax and save a day or two of her life. So the migration was very good for them. But another case in point, I don't know if you've heard of the case of Loving versus Virginia.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. 11 couple.
This is in Caroline County, where my father was raised.
Oh, okay.
The case of the Lovings versus Virginia was another point of migration because the
Mm-hmm.
police policed them, abused them, and tortured
Mm-hmm.
them because the law said that they could not live together. So the law in 1924, a racial integrity law was passed that struck down interracial marriages.
Yes, it
The
did.
Lovings married and they were found guilty and sentenced to 25 years, but was suspended if they moved from Virginia.
Yes,
So what
that's
did they
right.
do? They migrated to Washington, D.C.,
They
lived
did.
with family, raised their children.
Mm-hmm.
They had to leave their family behind in their homeland. In
Mm.
1967, the Supreme Court found that law unconstitutional, and they were able to go back and live in Virginia peacefully.
Yeah.
Their lineage is a part of our family line.
Mm.
Here we are in 2022, still facing racial equality and working to develop generational wealth. We're still working to document our history and the legacy of our family. In closing, thank you for your presence today and allowing me to share my family with you. I would like to encourage everyone to start writing down your family information, collect those pictures, keep those records, get those marriage license, get those birth and divorce papers, and keep those deeds whenever
Yes.
you can. I'm so grateful for the legacy of the Pitts and Eustis family.
It's a marvelous thing. It
One
is,
thing
Brenda.
about these families is that they were hardworking, they believed in God, they took care of their property and their families. And because of that, they left us in a better place. They left it better than they found it. So here I am today, back in Virginia. I have
Yeah.
no idea how I got here. That was not
Yeah.
my intention because I was
Yes.
out of there, back on Virginia soil,
Yes, in the homeland.
family, back being near my friends. And
Yes.
thank you for your time. I just have a few of the pictures I like to show and share.
Please do. Yes.
This was a family reunion that my siblings and I hosted in 2016. We did all the work, we paid for everything, and we invited everybody. And this is a picture where we collected the pictures of all my brothers, my father's brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
put on display. And as you can tell, we're big on pictures. Sonia did a
Mm.
board showing the legacy and the lineage of our family. And this is a picture of the 1996 family reunion where we used the book to present it to our families.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Preparing a family reunion for July the 3rd at Bull Run Park. And again, my siblings and I are excited to be hosting that for my father's family. And we're
Yes.
glad to be a part of that. If there are any questions that anyone would like to ask me, I would like to do that. And at the end, I'd like to just show a few little things that I did on my husband's side of the family. I don't want to leave.
Please. That's right. You're such an historian. My.
Yeah, when you put it all together, it really
You
is
are.
a bit of history. Yes. Any questions?
Let's
No,
see.
can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say, not a question, but you brought that to life for the family, and you've done a great job. And I want to thank you for that.
So who's on the call?
Just my
Jackie,
Oh, it's Jackie. Hi, Jackie.
hi.
How are you? Good to hear your
Great, and
voice.
you? Same here, same here.
Yes, Brenda, you did an absolutely marvelous job, far more than I had anticipated. And we have had Stephanie, your niece, here in the past. And
yes.
it's just all in the genes.
She's
But for you,
she's the bomb diggity girl.
she is. Well, she got it from somewhere. And that's shown today,
Well,
at least part of it.
She
But
says
the
that
fact,
our paperwork gave her a taste of what she wanted. She's
yes,
taken to a whole new level, a whole new level.
yes, I'm sure. But today, not only did you bring us your genealogy, your personal family genealogy, but you also brought in such rich history. And when you told about how your family, the family cemeteries were pretty much massacred. At AP Hill,
AP
and how
Hill.
the government just came there and all the cemeteries were destroyed, and that was just
They were relocated.
I didn't tell all of that story, but a part of that story as well is that they found other bodies on the property after they obtained it.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were children.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
And it's, the one thing about doing this history is it becomes painful.
it does. It does. The more we learn, the
Yes.
more painful it can become. But that's such a rich history to share. And
Yes.
a lot of us didn't know.
Yes.
And then the fact that your uncle passed. Well, a lot of people think that some of us pass to live a white life, but it might not occur to them that they're passing so that they can help their own families. And that's one of the things that your uncle did. You know, he was able to get employment and to be able to earn money that he could send back to his family in DC.
That was my grandfather.
That was your grandfather. That was my
Grandfather who did
granddaddy.
He's the one with the maid.
Yeah. The one with, yeah. Well, I mean, just the fact that he could do that,
Yes.
it says a lot. But we really appreciate all that you shared. It's just rich, just abundant. And
Well, I
we
think
thank
those
you for your
deeds were a
presence.
bonus. Finding those deeds over 130 years old was just amazing. And then they're the original deeds, which is even more amazing. But I tell you, in doing this, I have a lot of paperwork here.
Yes.
I am not as organized as I like to be. And there were some records that I could not put my hands on that I wanted to share, but I think that we got a good idea of what the life was for my parents and their parents.
Yes. And then to bring that added bonus with the Eustis side of the family, that was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
It truly was. I remember both of your parents. It's just such fine people.
Yeah. We miss them.
Sweet. Yes, yes. You know, and for your ancestors to carry down the legacy of, and to have the value, understand the value of owning property, property is wealth, and to give you that sense of security.
One of the things that I do for my three sons is I constantly give them the data when I obtain it so that they have it. And for their children, I play a money game. I give them money and I give them the basic information on my husband and I and our parents. And then I quiz them. If they get the answer right, they get $5 more. If they get it wrong, I take it from them.
Yeah.
I tell you that my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they know my maiden name. They know when I was born. They know my mother and father's name. And that keeps me happy.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. So you're carrying the legacy down as well.
Trying to.
Yeah. So we appreciate it, Brenda. Just a marvelous presentation.
Do I have time to show you this other book that I did?
Yeah, absolutely. We have time. Yes.
My husband's family, they were not raised together. So a part of me preserving history for my children was that I did this book on my husband's family. And because they were not raised together, we did a bio on each of the children, put down where they were raised and what they did. And so this gave them a basis, and this one is my husband. This gave them a basis on which they could build their relationship.
Yes.
So, and that was done in 2011. So in 2017, I put together this book. But because it's a different type of genealogy, what I did was I did a census track on each family. So, you know, when we look at the census, we get who's in the household, what names are, their sex, their date of birth, and I put in where they resided. So I did this for each of the families along with email addresses so they could do that. And then when I did the head count, there were 11 of them. The count was 270 people
Isn't that beautiful? From 11.
in his immediate family. And then I want the audience to know that genealogy can be just as simple as this one piece of paper here. This is my granddaughter, my son's daughter, and her husband both, when they had their children became a fifth generation on both sides. So I wanted to chart that. So in 2018, my granddaughter's children, they had 7 grandparents, 6 great-grandparents, and 13 great-great-grandparents, giving a total of 19 living grandparents.
Right.
And it's just drawing lines, putting it on paper.
Yes, that's right.
And I'm sorry,
You can see it.
one other picture. Oh, I forgot. This is a picture of my mother's mother and father.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done. Thank
It's
you.
a beautiful, wonderful presentation, Brenda. Just remarkable. You are just rich with history, a marvelous historian and genealogist. You present so well. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
thank you. And I just appreciate you taking the time and the fact that you encourage your children and your grandchildren, to carry that legacy on with them. It's a wonderful thing. And the history that you gave us today, I'm still just blown away by what I was able to learn from you in your presentation. So we thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you so much, everyone who joined us today. It's been a marvelous presentation by Brenda, my old classmate. Next time that we come together, on May 10th, we will be talking to Michael Parker Sr. of Warrenton, who will talk to us about the Proctor and Johnsons of the Upperville area. And he loves genealogy. So he will have quite a bit to share with us then. He's the son of the Michael who you might have seen on American Idol.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's his father. So
Yes.
he's going to be with us on May 10th. And then 2 weeks later on May 24th, we will have a visit with Sean Redmiles of the Fauquier Jail Museum. And he's just going to give us a little history about the freedom seekers and the runaway slaves of Fauquier County. So that should be quite interesting too. That's on May 24th. So we thank you on behalf of the Afro-American Historical Association of Fauquier County for joining us and welcoming Brenda Pitts Fuller. And we look forward to seeing you 2 Tuesdays from now.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Thank you so much, Brenda.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.